Now we get to a story that has generated major buzz, not just in the mixed martial arts world. Of course, last weekend in Alabama, Kyle Maynard, who's a congenital amputee born with his arms that end above the elbow and legs that end above the knee, finally competed in his first mixed martial arts match, loses the unanimous decision to Brian Fry. But he was the real winner here, Kenny. What a courageous young man. I mean, able-bodied individuals have a hard enough time in MMA, and this guy's doing it despite his limitations.
Absolutely. I first heard about Kyle and what he was doing in the wrestling arena, and I instantly became a fan of what Kyle was doing. And now for him to get into the mixed martial arts arena is nothing short of inspirational.
All right, well, now joining us here on MMA Live is Kyle Maynard, fresh off of his mixed martial arts debut. Kyle, congratulations on the accomplishment. When did you first consider becoming a mixed martial artist?
You know, I've been a huge fan of the sport for a long time, and I mean, Kenny, hearing you say that, man, you're a hero of mine too, so that means a lot to me. You know, it's just, the sport's been everything to me for the last 4 years. I had stopped wrestling my freshman year at Georgia, and went in, and for the last 4.5 years I've been training jiu-jitsu just religiously, and fell in love with it. Started at the Hardcore Gym in Athens, and now I'm training under Paul Creighton, Renzo Gracie black belt, and you know, just loving every second of it. The sport's a huge part of my life.
So speaking of those Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu credentials, have you submitted people in the gym, and sort of how do you go about doing that?
Yeah, you know, I play the heavy guy game a lot. You know, I try the takedowns and play a lot of cross-side, move towards chokes, whether it's north-south, arm triangles, so I can work arm bars, leg locks too. So I got my blue belt about 2 years ago, you know, and working on advancing further past that. You know, I think I've got a lot of grappling tournaments in my future too.
So was submitting Brian Fry part of the equation if the fight went to the ground?
I think that was my game plan. Was obviously I'm not going to stand and kickbox with somebody.
Right.
And Fry just had a great game plan of going in and not wanting to go to the ground at all, and really just counterpunching and keeping me at, you know, the end of his jab. And you know, I wasn't able to go and cut the corners on the cage as effectively as I wanted to. I felt like if I had had better lateral movement, you know, and not been so far away on my shots, then you know, would have had a better chance of taking him down. And watching it in hindsight, though, and actually doing it, those are two totally different things.
Now, you weren't able to wear gloves in the fight, correct me if I'm wrong, because of the humidity. So how did that affect your strike? I mean, you really weren't allowed to strike, correct?
I was actually able to, had I gotten the fight to the ground, would have been able to go and strike to the body with elbows. The amateur rules in Alabama that we were fighting under stipulate that I would have been able to strike anywhere but the head. And the problem was with the gloves, yeah, the room that I was warming up in, I had a sweat going before I even started warming up, and my arms were, you know, were pretty wet before I tried to apply the tape adhesive that I was using to go and tape the gloves on before in practice, and so I just couldn't get them to stay. And you know, it was, I can say it affected me a little bit, but really there was no excuse. You know, I mean, Fry just had the better game plan, was the better man that night.
Kyle, speaking of your future, how soon do you want to get back into the cage? And are you concerned at all about being sanctioned by various state commissions at all?
Well, in 2007, I was denied the right to fight in Georgia by the Athletic Commission, and so that was a big dream of mine, and I'd love to get a chance to go and do it in Georgia. Under the rules in Georgia, a grounded amateur opponent wouldn't be allowed to be struck in the head, so that game plan would almost be ineffective. And you know, I think that, you know, if I do get the chance to go in there and do it again, I'm going to be training nonstop to go and defeat that game plan, because honestly, that's the one biggest, you know, hole and flaw in you know, in my arsenal. And I think I need to go in there and figure out, you know, get back to the drawing board and figure out how to combat that before I try it again. But you know, that's not going to stop me. I'm, you know, already back in the gym, and you know, I'm going to be training this week, so it's, you know, back on the horse already. I'm not going anywhere anytime soon.
Well, Kyle, obviously you have legions of supporters, but there are some naysayers out there who maybe don't want you to fight again because of the obvious safety issues. What would you say to those naysayers? You
know, I think that there's always going to be critics and naysayers that don't want to see me go in there and do this, especially in mixed martial arts. And I understand that. I'm a huge fan of the sport, and the last thing I'd want to do is, you know, do and participate in something that would hurt the sport in any way. But I think that, you know, if anything, on Saturday night, I was able to prove that I was able to go 3 rounds with a tough competitor and, you know, and hang in there. And I think that I'd be capable of doing that against anybody at 135 pounds, which is the largest I've ever competed at. You know, ideally, even at a smaller weight class, I'm going to have that much more of an advantage, you know, and hopefully be able to, you know, to figure it out and, you know, get the fight into my realm, my arena, and make it happen.
And in terms of future opponents, I know your first opponent, Brian Fry, you have to have a lot of respect for taking the fight after we report, I guess, 6 or 7 guys had turned it down?
Yeah, it's hard to say. I've actually, the promoter and matchmaker, David Oblas, has been a good friend of mine for a long time and had a really difficult time finding an opponent for the fight. Other people said, you know, it was the prospective opponents were made claims about injuries and various other things, and you know, it's hard to say what the real reasons were. But you know, Fry came in there and he took the fight when other people wouldn't. I got a lot of respect for him. I think that you know, that took a lot of guts and a lot of heart as well. And I think though that, you know, now that people see that I'm going to be somewhat capable of it, you know, if I can continue to prove myself, like I said, inside the jiu-jitsu arena, then, you know, I think that it'll be that much easier in the future to, you know, secure opponents.
Well, in 2004, he won the ESPY Award for Best Athlete with a Disability. 5 years later, 23-year-old Kyle Maynard makes his mixed martial arts debut. Kyle, congratulations on a tremendous accomplishment. Best of luck with whatever you do going forward.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you for having me.
All right, so there you have it from Kyle Maynard. Really just an inspirational story, and we will certainly be tracking his career here on MMA Live.